get them. So it's through me that my family's storytelling legacy lives on. Listen to me, kids. If your grandparents and your parents tell stories, remember those stories, even if you have to write them down, because one of these days you're going to grow up and you're going to have kids, and you can tell them the same stories that were passed down in your family. Flossie! Whoop, that wasn't Flossie. Who else back here? The sound of Big Mama's voice floated past the cabins in Sophie's quarters, round the smokehouse, beyond the kitchen, the chicken coop, all the way down to Flossie Finley. Flossie tucked away her straw doll in a hollow log, then hurried to answer her grandmother's call. "Here I am, Big Mama," Flossie said after catching her breath. It was hot, hotter than a usual Tennessee August day. So we're in Mississippi. Tennessee's the next state going north. And Big Mama is her grandmama. Big Mama stopped sorting peaches and wiped her hands on her face with her apron. How many of y'all know what peaches are? Everybody knows what peaches are? Okay. We got peach trees in our yard, and we have to pick them and sort them, check them for worms. She stopped sorting peaches, wiped her hands and face with her apron, and says, "Take these over to Ms. Viola at the McCutcheon place," she said, reaching behind her and handing Flossie a basket of fresh eggs. "Seems like they've been troubled by a fox. Ms. Viola's chickens be so scared they can't even lay a stone." Big Mama clicked her teeth and shook her head. "How come Mr. J.W. can't catch the fox with his hound dogs?" Flossie said, putting a peach in her apron pocket to eat later. "Every time they corner that old slickster, he gets away. I tell you, that fox is one sly critter." What did Miss Livy tell y'all about foxes being sly? "How do a fox look?" Flossie asked. "I just remember ever seeing one." Big Mama had to think about it a bit. "Child, a fox just be a fox. But one thing for sure, that rascal loves eggs. He'll do most anything to get at some eggs." Flossie tucked the basket under her arm and started on her way. "Don't tarry now." What's tarry mean? What's tarry mean? What? It means going slow. Is that what you said? Okay. Going slow. "Don't tarry now," Big Mama called. "And be particular about them eggs. Because what happens when you drop a basket of eggs? Oh, they'll break." "Yes'm," Flossie answered. The way through the woods was shorter and cooler than the road route under the open sun. Well, duh. Do you go in the shade so you can get cooler? Yeah. Where would you have gone? Right through the woods. What if I come on a fox, thought Flossie. Oh, well, a fox just be a fox. That ain't so scary. Flossie commenced to skip along, and when she come upon a critter she couldn't recollect ever seeing, he was sitting beside the road like he was expecting somebody. Flossie skipped right up to him and nodded a greeting the way she'd been taught to do. Now, that's the way we're taught to do down here. But folks in other parts of the country don't do that, especially in big cities. But this is good. "Top of the morning to you, little missy," the critter replied. "And what is your name?" "I be Flossie Finley," she answered with a proper curtsy. "I reckon I don't know who you be either." Slowly the animal circled around Flossie. "I am a fox," he announced. "All the time eyeing the basket of eggs." He stopped in front of Flossie, smiled as best a fox can, and bowed. "At your service." Flossie rocked back on her heels and set up on her toes, back and forward, carefully studying the creature who was claiming to be a fox. "No," she said at last, "I just purely don't believe." "You don't believe what?" the fox asked, looking away from the basket of eggs for the first time. "I don't believe you're a fox. That's what." Fox's eyes flashed anger. Then he chuckled softly. "My dear child," he said, sounding right disgusted, "of course I'm a fox. A little girl like you should simply be terrified of me. Whatever do they teach children these days?" Flossie tossed her head in the air. "Well, whatever you are, you sure think a heap of yourself," she said, and skipped away. Fox looked shocked. "Wait," he called. "You mean You're not frightened, not just a bit. Now, y'all, a fox is like a dog. Like I say, as far as size is concerned, it's like a small dog, not as big as a Labrador, but close to that size. They're not really scary. But if you're little and you see something like that, then maybe you would be expected to be frightened. Not just a little bit. Flossie stopped. Then she turned and say, I ain't never seen a fox before. So why should I be scared of you? And I don't even know that you're a real fox for a fact. Fox pulled himself tall. He cleared his throat. Are you saying I must offer proof that I am a fox before you'll be frightened of me? That's just what I'm saying. But she told him, didn't she? Little Flossie skipped on through the piney woods while that fox fella rushed away looking for whatever he needed to prove he was really who he was. Meanwhile, Flossie stopped to rest beside a tree. Suddenly, Fox was beside her. I have the proof, he said. See, I have a thick, luxurious fur. Feel for yourself. I killed and skinned the fox when I was in college and tanned the hide myself. And every morning up at Ole Miss, when I'd get out of bed, I had the fox rug there to step on. And it was really thick and warm with hair, and it lasted the whole time I was at Ole Miss. I have thick, luxurious fur. Feel for yourself. Fox leaned over for Flossie to rub his back. Feels like rabbit fur to me, she said to the fox. Shucks, you ain't no fox, you're a rabbit all the time trying to fool me. Me, a rabbit, he shouted. I'll have you know. What else do foxes eat? Rabbits, yeah, they do. I am not a rabbit. I'll have you know my reputation precedes me. I am the third generation of foxes who have outsmarted and outrun Mr. J.W. McCutcheon's fine hunting dogs. I have raided some of the best hen houses from Franklin to Madison. Rabbit, indeed, I'm a fox, and you will act accordingly. Flossie hopped to her feet. She put her free hand on her hip and patted her foot. Unless you can show me you're a fox, I'll not accord you nothing. And without further ceremony, she skipped away. Down the road a piece, Flossie stopped by a bubbly spring. It used to be, even in the Delta, that the water in some places, especially next to creeks and all, the water would just kind of come bubbling up out of the ground. And that's called a spring. But then we started so much irrigation in the Delta. You see the center pivot irrigation systems and the water pumping. Do you know that in the Mississippi Delta in a hot summer, we pump out over 1 billion gallons of water a day out of the underground rivers, and that's caused the water level to go down, and now the springs are not all over like you used to see them when I was a boy. But this was back like when I was a boy, and she stopped by a bubbly spring and knelt to get a drink of water because that's cold, clear water that comes up out of there. Fox came up to her and said, I have a long pointed nose. Now that should be proof enough. Don't prove a thing to me. Flossie picks the wildflowers. Come to think of it, she said, matter of fact, like rats got long pointed noses. What else does? Possum. She snapped her fingers. That's it. You're a rat trying to pass yourself off as a fox. That near back took Fox's breath away. I beg your pardon, he gasped. You can beg all you want, Flossie say, skipping on down the road. That still don't make you no fox. I'll teach you a thing or two, young lady. Fox called after her, you just wait and see. Before long, Flossie came to a clearing. A large orange tabby, that's a cat, was sunning on a tree stump. Hi, pretty kitty, the girls say, and rubbed the cat behind the ears. Meanwhile, Fox slipped from behind a clump of bushes. Since you won't believe me when I tell you I'm a fox, he said stiffly, perhaps you will believe that fine feline creature toward whom you seem to have some measure of respect. Well, once again, they got the fox talking better than people. Flossie looked at the cat and winked her eye. He sure used a heap of words, she whispered. Fox beckoned for Cat to speak up. Cat jumped to a nearby log and yawned and stretched, and then she answered, this is a fox because he has sharp claws and yellow eyes, she purred. Fox seemed satisfied, but Flossie looked at Cat. She looked at Fox, looked once more at both of them just to be sure, and she said, all due respect, Miss Cat, but both y'all got sharp claws and yellow eyes, so that don't prove nothing, except that both of y'all be cats. Fox went to howling and run around in circles. He was playing beside himself. I'm a fox and I know it, he shouted. This is absurd. Ain't no call to use that kind of language, Flossie said, and she skipped away. Wait, Fox followed, pleading. I just remembered something. It may be the solution to this horrible situation. Good, it's about time. I got a bushy tail. Fox seemed to perk up. That's right, he said. All foxes are known for their fluffy, bushy tails. That has got to be adequate proof. And got to be. You got a bushy tail? So do squirrels. Flossie pointed to one overhead, leaping from branch to branch in the treetops. Here, have a bite of peach, she said, offering Fox first bite of her treat. But Fox was crying like a natural-born baby. No, he sobbed. If I promise you I'm a fox, won't that do, Flossie? Shook her head. Nope. Oh, woe is me, Fox hollered. I may never recover my confidence. Flossie didn't stop walking. That's just what I've been saying. You just an old confidence. Come telling me you're a fox and can't prove it. Shame on you. Long about that time, Flossie and the fox came out of the woods. Flossie cupped her hands over her eyes and caught sight of McCutcheon quarters and Miss Viola's cabin. Fox didn't notice a thing. He just followed behind Flossie, begging to be believed. Give me one last chance, he pleaded. Flossie turned on the heel. Okay, but just this once more. Fox tried not to whimper, but his voice was real unsteady, like, I have sharp teeth, and I can run exceedingly fast. He waited for Flossie to say something. Slowly the girl rocked from heel to toe, back and forward. You know, she finally said, smiling, it don't make much difference what I think anymore. What? Fox asked. Why? Because there's one of Mr. J.W. McCutcheon's hounds behind you. He's got sharp teeth, and he can run fast, too. And by the way, that hound's looking. It's all over for you. With a quick glance back, Fox dashed toward the woods. That hound knows who I am, he shouted, but I'm not worried. I sure can outsmart and outrun any one of Mr. J.W. McCutcheon's miserable mutts any time of the day, because like I told you, I am a fox. I know, said Flossie. I know. And she turned toward Miss Viola's with the basket of eggs tucked safely under her arm. Again, somebody had outfoxed the fox.
How y'all like that story? Y'all like that one? That was a good story, wasn't it? Yes. Again, we're talking about what? Cleverness. And again, we have a fox. Yes. The fox did what? That's right. They weren't so foxy after all, were they? This is about outfoxing a fox again. And this little girl was pretty smart, wasn't she? Now, we talked about predators. And, you know, if you ever see stories, sometimes you see stories about people trying to make a pet out of a wild animal. You shouldn't do that. They're not meant to be domesticated. People will get tigers and things like that. Their nature is to be predators. So you might want to remember that little piece of advice as you get older. If you get around somebody and they say they've got a leopard or something that's just real friendly, just stay away. But anyway, this fox thought that he was going to be able to get those eggs. And Flossie used an age-old method to keep him from getting them. She did what? What did she do? That's right. She distracted him, didn't she? Mamas, we all know this, don't we? Can I have a cookie? Go over there and see if that's your daddy coming in the driveway. Can I have a cookie? What's that on the television? You know, we just change the subject, don't we? That's a clever thing to do. Y'all might learn to do this when you get older, too. We distract and change the subject. And it's said that if you have a little bitty child and they're getting into trouble, rather than spend your whole day spanking them, Just change their attitude, distract them, put them onto something else. So that's what she was doing. She said, "You're not a fox." And she got him so distracted, trying to prove that he was really a fox, that before they knew it, where did they end up? Right where she was supposed to take the eggs. So would you think Flossie was a pretty clever young girl? I think she was too. And I love the drawings. I think the drawings are so wonderful in this story. They're done so well. And the kitty cat, the fox, Flossie, her expressions, you can just see, I can just see what she's thinking when I look at these beautiful drawings in this book.
Now, we just got through talking about foxes and the hound dogs, and we've got hound dogs in this one here. And I've got to have some help with this story. You know, I've had to have y'all help me before, you know, like Anansi and the strange moss-covered rock. There you go. Another A over there. All right. You have to call the dogs. All right. When I was a little boy, my grandmother told me this story, and I don't remember the story, but I remember the calling the dogs. And this is what I'm going to get you to help me with. When she called the dogs, it was, "Here, Rouser, here, Towser, here, Ringwood, here, Rock. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy." Hear that? Okay. Here, Rouser, here, Towser, here, Ringwood, here, Rock. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy. Now, when I want you to help me with this, you got to help me. So we'll practice right now. You ready? Here, Rouser, here, Towser, here, Ringwood, here, Rock. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy. Okay, now you remember that. Now, the other thing you got to remember about dogs, hound dogs, is there's several kinds of them. And I've raised hound dogs all my life. Now, we've got beagles, and they go kind of high like this. Okay, give me some beagle help. There you go. And then we had a black and tan hound named Jupiter Pluvius. And his bay was like, "Arp, arp, arp, arp." Come on, help me. Arp, 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 arp. Okay. And then we had a plot hound that stood about this high named Bellowin' Buford. And Bellowin' Buford would go like this. Arp, 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 arp. Is anybody over here Bellowin' Buford? Arr, arr. Okay, now, when we get ready in this story to call the dogs, then the dogs are going to come. Y'all got to act out both parts. Yes, sir.
My teacher made me bring the shoes in my third grade.
Does she bay like that? Okay. Okay, well, sometime when you get her off to the side, ask her if she can bay like that, because that's the Bellowin' Buford I had could bay like this. This one is by Molly Garrett Bang. Have you got the right book? Yours is just a different copy than mine. Same book. Molly Garrett Bang, and she's from right over next door in Alabama. Okay. This was a long time ago. Wiley, his little boy's name, and his mama lived near a swamp, and the swamp was near the Tombigbee River. Does anyone in here know where the Tombigbee River is? Where?
In Alabama.
In Alabama. It's on the line between Alabama and Mississippi, up in the north part of Mississippi. So we're talking about almost right here in Mississippi that this story is coming from. The swamp was near the Tombigbee River. One day, Wiley wanted to cut some bamboo. Who knows what bamboo is? What? Bamboo is kind of like a cane. It's a cane that is round like this, and what he needed it for was some poles for the hen roost. In the hen house, you have poles on there, and at night, the chickens go in there, and they will sit on the poles and hook their claws around it, and that's the way they'll sleep. I'm going to tell you a secret. When I was young, one time they were having a barn dance down the road from me, and me and another boy went in the hen house, and if you're real careful, you can pick up a hen and kind of get her feet loose and put her in a sack, and she'll never wake up. And we did that with about a dozen chickens, and then took them up in the loft of the barn where they were having the dance down below, and we turned them loose, and you should have seen some folks running, and we never got caught. He got his axe to go down in the swamp to cut the bamboo with some poles for the hen's roost. And Wiley's mama said, Wiley, be careful when you go to the swamp. Take your hound dogs with you, because the hairy man will get you if you don't watch out. Wiley's mother knew that the hairy man hated hound dogs. She knew because she knew all about the ways of the swamp. She had grown up on the Tombigbee River. Wiley said, I'll watch out. I'll take my hound dogs with me everywhere I go. But when he got to the swamp, the dogs jumped a wild pig and ran after it. They ran so far away, Wiley couldn't even hear him yelp. All right, he's listening for him yelping. So here we go with the dogs yelping. Who's the Beagles? Who's the Beagles? Who's the Black and Tans, huh? Or give me who's the Bellow and Bufords? All right. You couldn't even hear him. You so far away, couldn't even hear him yelp. Well, thought Wiley, I hope the hairy man ain't anywhere around here. And he took his axe and began to cut the bamboo poles. Then Wiley looked up, and there was the hairy man. He was coming through the trees. He sure was ugly. He was hairy all over. His eyes burned like coals. His teeth were big and sharp and white. He was carrying a sack. Whoa. Wiley was scared. Quick as he could, he climbed up a big bay tree. We got a bay tree in back of my house, but we ain't got to hear him in nowhere. Wiley had seen that the hairy man had feet like a cow. And Wiley knew cows can't climb trees. The hairy man stood at the foot of the tree that Wiley was up, and he called, Wiley, what are you doing up there? Wiley said, my mama told me to stay away from you. Then Wiley asked, what's in your big old sack? Nothing yet. The hairy man said. He picked up Wiley's axe and began to chop down the tree. Wiley held tight to the tree. He rubbed his belly against it, and he hollered, fly, chips, fly. Fly back to your same old place. The chip flew back. The hairy man chopped faster. Wiley hollered as fast as he could, but the hairy man was faster. The chip flew and flew. The hairy man was winning. Then flew from way off. Wiley heard his dogs yelping. Here, dogs, he cried. Here, Rouser, here, Towser, here, Ringwood, here, Rock. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy. Then here come the dogs. Put the lights back on. The dogs came running. Soon as hairy man saw them, he fled away into the swamp. When Wiley got home, he told his mama what had happened. Did the hairy man have his sack with him? She asked. Yes, ma'am, he did. Well, his mama said, next time the hairy man comes after you, don't climb a tree. Just stay on the ground and say, hello, hairy man. And the hairy man will say, hello, Wiley. Then you say, I hear you're the best conjure man around here. What's conjure mean? Magic, magic, magic. Conjure is magic. I hear you're the best conjure man around here. What's conjure? Wiley asked his mother. She answered, it's magic. See, all you had to do was read the book. You'd know that. She went on, you tell him he's the best conjure man, and he'll say, I reckon I am. Then you say, I bet you can't change yourself into a giraffe. and he'll change himself into a giraffe. Then you say, I bet you can't change yourself into an alligator, and he'll change himself into an alligator. You keep telling him what he can't do, he'll keep doing it just to show you, and then you say, what's the theme this week? Cleverness. Hey. Then you say, everybody can change into something big. I bet you can't change yourself into a little possum. You know, your Uncle Bob has had a dozen baby possums as pets, and they make really good pets, but they are kind of small. But although, this is a fact, a possum has more teeth than any other land mammal in the world. You know that? He will change into a little possum, and then you grab him right away and throw him into his own sack, and then take the sack and throw it in the river. Well, he was scared to do what his mama said, but the next time he had to go to the swamp, he tied up his hound dogs. As soon as he got to the swamp, Wiley saw the hairy man. He was coming at him through the trees. He was swinging his sack. He was grinning because he knew that Wiley had left his hound dogs behind. Wiley wanted to run away, but he stayed there. He said, hello, hairy man. And the hairy man said, hello, Wiley. Hairy man, said Wiley, I hear you're the best conjure man around here. I reckon I am, said the hairy man. I bet you can't change yourself into a giraffe. Wiley said, sure I can, the hairy man said. That's no trouble at all. The hairy man twisted around and he changed himself into a giraffe. Whoa! Then Wiley said, I bet you can't change yourself into an alligator. The giraffe twisted around and changed itself into an alligator. Then Wiley said, everybody can change into something big. I bet you can't change yourself into a little possum. The alligator twisted around and changed itself into a little possum, and Wiley grabbed the possum, throwed it in the hairy man's sack. He grabbed the sack so tight as he could, then he threw the sack into the Tombigbee River. And tied it up and threw it into the Tombigbee River. Wiley started back home through the swamp. He felt happy. You know, if you ever get the hairy man in a sack and throw the sack in the river, you need to think of one thing before you do that. You need to put a brick in the sack, okay? But he hadn't gone far when there was Hairy Man again. He was coming at Wiley. Wiley climbed right up the nearest tree. He said, how'd you get out? He called the hairy man. I changed myself into the wind, the hairy man said, and I blew my way out. Now I'm going to wait right down here. You'll get hungry. You'll have to come down out of that tree. Wiley thought and thought. He thought about the hairy man waiting below. He thought about the hound dogs tied up at home. After a while, Wiley said, hairy man, you did some pretty good tricks, but I bet you can't make things disappear. The hairy man said, ha, that's what I'm best at. See that bird's nest up there on that branch? Wiley looked, it was there, then it was gone. But Wiley said, I never saw it in the first place. I bet you can't make something I know is there disappear. Look at your shirt. Wiley looked down. His shirt was gone. Oh, that's just a plain old shirt, he said. But this rope around my pants is magic. My mama conjured it. What's conjure mean? Magic. My mama conjured it. I bet you can't make that rope disappear. The hairy man said, I can make all the rope in this county disappear. I bet you can't, said Wiley. The hairy man throwed out his chest. He opened his mouth wide and he hollered loud, all the rope in this county, disappear! The rope around Wiley's pants was gone. He held his breeches up with one hand. He held on to the tree with the other, and he hollered loud, here Rouser, here Towser, here Ringwood, here Rock, kitty, kitty, Kobe, true boy. Kitty, kitty, Kobe, true boy. And the dogs came a running. And the hairy man ran away. When Wiley got home, he told his mama what had happened. Well, she said, you fooled the hairy man twice. If you can fool him one more time, now y'all remember this because you might run up on a hairy man. If you fool him one more time, he'll never come back to bother us again. But he'll be mighty hard to fool that third time. Wiley's mother sat down in her rocking chair, and she thought. Wiley couldn't sit still. It's Wiley that the hairy man wanted to get and eat, right? He went outside. He tied one dog up at the front door. He tied the other dog up at the back door. Then he came inside. He crossed a broom and an axe over the window. That's so he couldn't get in. He built a fire in the fireplace, so he couldn't come down the chimney. Then he sat down and he helped his mama think. That's what you look like you're helping your mama think right now. After a while he said, Wiley, she said, go down to the pen and bring me back a young pig. Wiley went down to the pen, brought her back a piglet, and she put the piglet in Wiley's bed. Now, I know that your mama comes in your room and said, it looks like pig's been living in here. Now, Wiley had a legal reason to have that happen. His mama said, Wiley, you go up in the loft and hide. Wiley climbed up in the loft. He looked out front through a knot hole in a plank. He saw a great big animal run out of the swamp toward the house. The dog out front broke loose. It chased the animal back into the swamp. Wiley looked out back through the crack between planks. He saw another animal run out of the swamp toward the house. The other dog broke loose. It chased the animal back into the swamp. All the dogs was gone. There wasn't nothing to guard the house. The wind howled and the house shook. Wiley heard footsteps on the roof over his head. It was a hairy man. He was trying to come down the chimney, but what was in the chimney? A fire, yeah, okay. He couldn't come down the chimney. When the hairy man touched the chimney and found it was hot, he cursed and swore. Then he jumped down from the roof and he walked right up to the front door. He banged on it and yelled, Mama, I've come for your young'un. But while his mama called back, you can't have him, hairy man. The hairy man said, I'll set your house on fire with lightning. Look at that lightning coming out of him. Whoa! I'll burn it down if you don't give him to me. But while his mama called out, I got plenty of sweet milk. Hairy man, the milk will put out the fire. Then the hairy man said, I'll dry up your cow. I'll dry up your spring. I'll send 1,000,000 bowl we was out of the ground to eat up your cotton. If you don't give me your young'un. Hairy man said, Wiley's mother, you couldn't do all that. That's mighty mean. I'm a mighty mean man, said the hairy man. Hairy man like that. So Wiley's mama said, if I do give you the young'un, will you go away and never come back? I swear I will, said the hairy man. Wiley's mama opened the door. He's over in that bed. The hairy man grinned and grinned. He walked over the bed. He snatched the covers back. Hey, he yelled, there ain't nothing in this bed but a young pig. I never said which young'un I'd give you. Wiley's mother answered. The hairy man stomped his feet. He gnashed his teeth. He raged and yelled. Then he grabbed the piglet and fled away with it into the swamp. Wiley came down from the loft. Is the hairy man gone for good? He sure is, said Wiley's mama. He can't ever get you down. Wiley and his mama had fooled the hairy man 3 times, and they never saw him again. But they knew how to call the dogs, right? Here, Rouser, here, Towser, here, Ringwood, here, Rock. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy. Killy, killy, Kobe, true boy. And all the dogs came. You got a pack of dogs out here.
How'd y'all like that story? Woo, that was a good one. Let's give the hair